Welcome to the Intuitive Ascending Mind podcast with your host, Alia Yasmin Khan. Throughout this series, you'll learn how cultivating a growth mindset can unlock your true potential and impact every aspect of your life. Join Alia and her guest each episode as they dive deep into strategies for personal development and lasting transformation. Now, here's Alia.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Intuitive Ascending Mind podcast. Joining me on today's show is Rocky Lalvani. He is a business coach and he helps entrepreneurs and business owners build profit and gain more cash flow. Welcome to the show, Rocky. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me today.
My pleasure. You're also a podcaster as well. I didn't even add that into your title, but you've got a lot. Let's talk a little bit about tell everyone about your journey. What was your path like that brought you to this point?
Looking back, it all makes sense. Looking forward, I couldn't figure it out.
Sure.
So, as a kid, I was a tech geek. Now, this is a long time ago. We're talking in the early 80s, right? When tech was just kind of first coming out. And I bought an Apple computer. I always knew how to make money. So I saved up $2,000 cash, which is a lot more now than with inflation, right? Walked into a computer store and bought my Apple II computer pretty close to when they first came out. And one of the first programs that I really learned to use on there was a program called VisiCalc, which is the precursor to Excel,
Okay.
right? So I was always a numbers person. I love spreadsheets. I love trying to figure out how to make and grow money. But when I got out of college, I didn't know where my place was. I didn't like any of the financial advisors because they all wanted to sell crap products to your family and friends. And I was like, this is not what I want to do. I I didn't understand big data. And it wasn't until much later in life that I realized all of these companies take all their data and actually put it into Excel, and that's where they manipulate it all, and that's where they figure everything out. In the meantime, I was on the personal finance side. How do you become wealthy and how do you build wealth? And then somewhere along the journey, I found out that business owners weren't looking at their numbers. And I'm like, wait a minute, how can you be a business owner and not understand the business of business? And so it was kind of at that point that I started shifting from the personal finance side over to the business finance side. And eventually I said, hey, let's just do this, and go full force. And that was over 5 years ago now. And now we work with business owners. We help them to grow and scale their profit and cash flow. So many of them focus on revenue, but it doesn't matter how much money you have coming in if you can't keep any of it.
That's true.
And that is the problem we solve is, hey, it's great. You know how to generate revenue. We're going to help you keep it, put it in your pocket, take it home because you went into business for that freedom. And if you don't have the cash, you don't have the freedom.
That's so true. What are some foundational principles that you have that you apply in that realm to sort of give them that foundation? Like when you think of like an Excel spreadsheet, what should that look like? How should that be set up?
So a couple things. It's much more beyond just the Excel spreadsheet. At the beginning, everyone was told you need to pay yourself first. And yet if you look at a business owner, they usually pay themselves last, right? If you went into business and you said, according to your business plan, hey, I'm going to be profitable. Well, every time you sell something, you should be able to take that profit first because your sale was profitable, right? At least it was supposed to be. And so the first thing we do is set up the basics of cash management. You said that the money coming in, a certain part is for profit, a certain part is to make sure you get paid, a certain part is to pay your overhead and all your expenses. And then we also have to set money aside for taxes, be ready for the tax bills. And then there might be some other things we need to set money aside. So when the money comes in, we systematically put it into a pot, a bank account for a specific purpose. And emotionally and psychologically, it works because then owners know, okay, this is how much I have to spend. They've got real time information. I think one of the problems is most accounting systems, by the time you get your information, it's so old that they don't care. So in this sense, you have real-time information of where your cash is, how much you have, and what your true cash position is. And that's all based on the book Profit First. The next thing we do is we set goals. All right, where do you want to go? What are you expecting for a revenue target? What is your profit target? How much are you going to be spending in the different parts of your business, including marketing? Because we waste a lot of money on marketing and we don't always know if we get results, right? So it's literally setting out a roadmap for the year of saying, this is where I expect my business finances to be this year. And then every month we go and we look at that and we see how we're doing. But what we really do is we have 16 different levers that we look at. All the levers work together. So think about it in this sense. Every business operates in the same way. It's kind of like a car. You have a, I don't know if you drive a car, but if you have a car, I have a car. They all generally have four wheels. They have a steering wheel, right? They've got an engine. You put gas in it or electric or whatever, and it goes and you drive it. Businesses aren't much different when you understand what those core pieces are. And so we look at those core pieces and it starts at the beginning. How many people are interested in your business? What's your lead flow look like? How many leads are converting? How much are you selling for? And so the first group of levers is about driving revenue. The second group of levers is all about driving profit. How much is all your overhead, your employees, your marketing? What are all your costs? And then the third group of levers are driving cash flow because businesses can be profitable and have no cash. And that's what I think surprises a lot of business owners. And it's because their cash is tied up in inventory. Maybe it's tied up because they haven't been paid by the client yet. Maybe it's going to pay off debt service, or maybe the owner is dipping his little hands into the pot a little too much and spending on things that may be a bit excessive. And so it's looking at all of that and kind of helping the business go from there.
What are some common areas that you see that are like major red flags that jump out at you? Like almost always you'll find when you're kind of doing that deep dive into somebody's business.
There is no one red flag. But what we find is when we look at those 16 levers, that one or two or three of them are out of sync. And so that's where we know to put our focus. So some people might have a good operational system, like they are profitable. The problem is they don't have enough revenue, like their revenue isn't consistent. So then we focus on revenue generation. Others might be really good at generating revenue, but their operations aren't effective. And then some companies have set up policies and the way of doing business that they aren't focused on making sure the cash comes in the door. So instead of collecting cash up front, they bill it out and they're okay with getting paid in 90 days. Well, 90 days later, everyone forgets about you and hopefully they do pay you, but it becomes a problem. So it's looking at all of those. Some people have too much debt, so then we have to get them out of debt.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, when it comes to business owners getting paid, like you said, they kind of get paid last typically. How would you prioritize? How do you shift them out of that space or that state of mind?
So I think what happens is there's a bit of fear. Can I take money out of the business? And we understand that. Um, Depending on where they are in the stage of their business, they've got different problems and different issues. What we do is by using that profit first methodology, we put the money aside for their pay It doesn't mean they have to take it, but at least it's sitting in a bank account. And as that bank account starts to grow, they tend to feel more comfortable. They're like, okay, I put money aside for my pay. The account has enough money to pay me, and it's got a little surplus. So if there is a problem in the business, I'm not so fearful about removing it. I think that's the problem is everyone constantly says, I'll pay myself when, or I'll be profitable when. But you should be profitable now. It doesn't matter if you're a startup. Like it's a mindset shift of focusing there.
Sure, because a lot of gurus, and I mean, I listen to like a lot of people, they'll tell you, oh, the first 5 years you're not going to be profitable, or like the first 3 years, or whatever that number is. And for me, it's kind of like I've always tried to look at it to figure out, well, how can I break it down? What can I take on? Like, what type of how can I manipulate it so that I can scale back as much as I can so that I can keep as much as I can to reinvest back. But I do have that mindset of like wanting to reinvest it right back into the business and not take care of me in the process. So like this is speaking straight to me right now.
Well, and let's talk about that. Instead of you reinvesting in your business, I want you to invest in my business. Now, if you're going to invest in my business, are you going to expect something in return?
Sure. Sure.
Okay. You're going to want to know some questions like when is the money coming back? Right? What's my return on my investment? Right?
Yep.
How risky is this?
Yes.
What are the chances that you might go out of business or not be able to pay me back?
Yep.
Here's my question. How many of you ask yourself that question when you say I want to reinvest in the business? If you're telling me you're investing in the business, well, then you should get a return on that investment. And if you're not getting a return on that investment, then you're wasting money. And that's a time to look in the mirror and face the reality of what's going on.
Sure. So some businesses are just really great at grabbing, new client information. Have you been able to utilize like technology to help do that more efficiently or in your business or in any of the businesses that you've coached? Have you seen if that's like an effective method? Like has AI made it easier?
So there's two parts to your question.
Yeah.
There's the basic technology part, and now we're putting AI on top of that. So absolutely. All of the things that we do for our clients, while they're bespoke and custom to the client, underneath it all is the same standard processes, systems, Excel sheets, and everything else that allow us to systematize the entire collection of their data in one easy to way to do it. Now, everyone's got different systems we pull from, but the principles are systematized to work that way. We try and do that for all of our clients. So here's what happens, and this is what gets crazy. You can look at a profit and loss statement and you can see, oh, I'm profitable or I lost money. What you can't see are hidden line items. Line items are bad systems and processes, bad culture, right? All of these types of things cause wastage, cause slowdowns, cause um, things to disappear, and it just shows up on the P&L that you're not making money and you can't figure out why. So you do have to be able to systematize everything in the business. You should be able to have clarity on what is everybody's role, what value do they bring, are they working in alignment with what your expectations are, and are they all helping you to row the boat to make more money? And what I mean by that is we can go to our sales department and we can incentivize them to sell more. But if they have the ability to discount, and they're not worried about whether or not the company gets paid. They will go out and sell things at a massive discount that might actually be unprofitable to a client who may never pay. So we have to make sure that that person's goals are in alignment. So instead of focusing on revenue, a lot of times we'll focus on gross profit of the sale so that the sales rep can look at our offerings and go, well, where's the one that I can get the best gross profit on? And then there's the focus, and we don't pay them until the customer pays us. Because I don't care when you make the sale. I care when the check is in your bank account and
Right.
you've actually been paid. So systematizing and dashboarding all of that so that you have good metrics on people and that they have clarity on what they're supposed to do just as much as you have clarity on what they're doing. That's one big part of the tech stack. And there are tons of ways to do this. AI is a game changer. The way I look at AI is like Google AdWords when they first came out. In the beginning, if you were smart enough to get a Google AdWord and buy them, they were like pennies. People were paying 2 cents for what they're paying $100 for today. Well, if you think about that, how does that change your marketing game? I think we're in the same space with AI. We use AI throughout what we do. We use it to analyze our calls, improve our calls. We use it to do our custom marketing. We use it as a thought partner. We use it to help us clarify thinking, to look for things we're missing, to look at us and myself as the business owner and say, what am I missing? Where are my blind spots? How can I improve? So we're using AI constantly, day in, day out, in a whole variety of different ways. Even if you had to look at a contract, now you can give the contract to AI and ask it specific questions. You can ask different things of it. Here's the problem, and I just saw this on social media. It was hilarious.
I will power here. Success isn't for everyone. It demands focus, discipline, and strategy. Introducing the OWLS method, designed for those who take their goals seriously. O. Become the observer of your thoughts and feelings. Analyze them. Become aware of your emotions and beliefs. Only then can you master your mind. W. You should write down your goals, every detail, every step, and write the thoughts and affirmations that will drive you relentlessly toward them. L. Listen. Fill your mind only with knowledge that will move you to your goal. Write affirmations that fuel your ambition. No distractions. No compromise. S. Speak with certainty. Your words reflect your beliefs. When you speak, it's not a possibility, it's an inevitability. It's confidence. Observe, write, listen, and speak. The OWLS method. Master your thoughts. Conquer your goals.
This attorney was complaining. He goes, I'm noticing that when I send contracts out to people, they send me back these AI responses. But he goes, I'm really not complaining because every time they send me back an AI response, it makes the contract better for my client.
Yeah.
And it's because they didn't tell AI what side of the contract they were on and what their purpose was. And so the way I say it is AI is the smartest person in the room. But if you're acting like a 5-year-old, you're going to get 5-year-old answers.
Sure.
So you really have to master it as a tool.
Yeah. I think AI goes based off of your level of inputs, your intellectual level of inputs. So what you're putting in is what you're going to get back out from it. Absolutely.
Correct. And I think you also have to go in and customize the AI, tell it who you are, tell it what you're trying to accomplish, tell it to remember and learn from you, define. You really have to define the outcome and parameters. So what I always do whenever I ask AI a question, I always say to it at the end, ask me one question at a time to help produce a better answer. So then it starts asking me questions. I'm like, oh my God, I gotta think. Wow, I didn't even think about that. And so it creates a conversation and a dialogue. And now we're getting better and better answers.
So, if you don't mind me asking, what AI programs do you kind of favor more than others?
I, our main one is ChatGPT. I also love Claude AI.
Okay.
However, we use different other AI tools in conjunction with those. So, like, we're on Zoom right now. I use, I think it's Fathom.tv.
Okay.
Fathom's a note taker that comes to all my calls. It records the call, it creates notes. I can ask questions of the notes right within it because I think it ties back into ChatGPT. For our podcast, we use Riverside. Riverside creates the transcript immediately. It will also create our clips. It creates the blog post. It does all of that. But then sometimes we'll throw it back into chat to improve it or Claude to make it a little bit better. I use Google's notebook program, which you can throw a whole book in there and have a conversation with. There are so many different AI tools, and everyone has different needs that I think you have to go find what the AI tool today is, because tomorrow it's going to, we're changing so fast. I think everyone's under this impression that these couple of AI companies like ChatGPT is going to be around forever. I'm going to say something. AOL's gone. Our first national home broadband was At Home, gone, bankrupt, right? Netscape, they're gone, right?
Yeah.
So I I think that's where we are. We're in a world that things are moving faster and accelerating quicker, which you see, but there's going to be constant change and you got to just keep up and keep learning and keep being curious.
Yeah. Curiosity. That's the key, I think, to just keep learning and keep growing. Um, I
There
have,
is one problem though. Before you ask, I need to tell people this. AI hallucinates. So you have to be very, very careful. It cannot tell the truth. It cannot tell the difference between truth and fiction. So be very careful what you do.
that's very true. I recently got Sintra AI and it is pretty interesting because you have all these little AI modules that you can kind of train to create an email for you or create a social post for you and automate you, but the brain actually studies you, so it sends you a whole bunch of questions to get to know you, and you can kind of integrate it with your other businesses and your social media platforms, and it just kind of does its thing. It's pretty fun and exciting. It's like having, multiple employees just kind of cover different areas of your business. It's pretty cool. Um, how do you see?
It is, and it's fast. So
Go ahead. Sorry.
no, I was just going to say it's super fast.
Yeah, yeah. So what are your thoughts on how businesses need to pivot and change with these new tools in place? Like what are your thoughts? How should business owners be looking at their business? Should they be trying to automate as much as they can, or should they still value the employees and try to develop their skills? Like what are your thoughts on that?
We love automation, okay, where it makes sense. When you're dealing with employees, I mean, you still have to have the human connection. However, I bet that every employee has within their work a whole lot of crap that's mundane, boring, and they don't want to do, but need to do. So for us, it's more about getting rid of the mundane, boring stuff that nobody wants to do and getting that into a system or into AI or somewhere else so that they can move up and they can do more creative work and they can work on better things. So that's kind of the way we look at it. Like, is there a reason for a person to do this, or could we put a system or process into it? So I always use the example of McDonald's, right? No matter where you go, you have a relatively uniform experience. They're able to bring in people, train them quickly, plug them in. They have probably, I don't know what their turnover is. It's probably pretty high. Um, but they've systematized that whole entire business. And with labor costs going up, I know there was just recently an article about California and restaurants. And because they have to pay a higher wage now for restaurant workers, more and more companies are saying, where can I systematize, automate, and replace people who are doing things that aren't fun, that they don't want to do anyway, and make it easier?
Yeah. I definitely think there's some systems that can be made easier for sure, but humans like to talk to humans. That's what I've discovered. Like as much as we try to automate things, like humans want that human connection. It makes a difference when you're sitting in front of, it's like when we started to shop online, all of the brick and mortar stores were like freaking out. They're like, what is going to happen? Like, are we going to lose our jobs? Because revenue just decreased for them. People were buying stuff online, but people also like going into a store and trying things on, or, being able to smell a fragrance before they purchase it or whatever it is. So they have still had that traffic kind of coming in, and it's a little bit more of a social experience now. You're kind of noticing malls integrating with living spaces. It's not quite a mall anymore like it used to be, in the 90s or 2000s. So there's some changes that are happening.
There are, but this younger generation, they're perfectly content shopping online and returning stuff, which is a major problem for the business owner because those returns don't necessarily make it back onto the shelf, which makes the cost of doing business extremely high. And even if you're selling on a platform like Amazon, their fees are outrageously high. But then the question is, how do you get people to show up in your store? You have to create an experience.
Right.
And that, again, it depends on where you're located, how much traffic you have. Can you do that and make it happen? Um, and then how do you do it and still compete? So
Right.
you've got to have that something, that special sauce that people are willing to pay much more for you than they're willing to pay for something else.
Right. If you're launching a new product, like how do you even get that out there? Like what are the stepping stones these days? Like is it should it just be on social media? It's hard to pick up traction on there sometimes, you know?
I think it's everyone thinks it's social media. Social media is not easy because there is so much noise. And now, I think a couple of years ago, Apple changed the rules. So Facebook doesn't know who the specific people are anymore. So it becomes very hard to target a specific person. So it depends on your product. Is your product something everyone buys, or is your product something a very small niche of people buy? Because if it's the niche, it's going to be hard to
Sure.
find them unless you've got curated groups to go to. Um, the bigger question is when you came up with your idea, is it your baby or did you actually solve a problem that the market has and is willing to pay for a solution to? And
Right.
that's a mindset shift for business owners because everything is their little baby.
Yeah.
And the reality is people don't care about your baby. I'm sorry, but it's true. They
Yeah.
care about themselves and their problems.
Yes.
And if you can solve their problem, they're happy. They're not so enamored with the baby. They just want their problem solved.
Yeah. It's about service. Service is what it comes down to. Like how many people are you serving is going to determine how much revenue you're going to generate. So it's always numbers, like how many people, how do you increase the quantity of people that you're serving and still provide that same level of service as well to them. Those are the skills. What are your future plans? What are your future goals?
You know, I built this as a lifestyle business to serve me. I really enjoy what I do. I love it, but I also know how much is enough. And so we're very defined in what is enough and the constraints of what is acceptable within the business. We are still working on this whole marketing side of the business and moving up market, trying to figure out how best to speak to potential clients, putting systems and processes in for long-term follow-up and all of those things. It it was it's the part of the business I don't necessarily love, but now that we have ChatGPT, I can my ability to do it is night and day. So now I can do it in an enjoyable way, have fun, and build out all of these marketing assets. So that's a big part of what we are doing now is the follow up and the lead nurture and all of those systems so that we have consistent future income. And that's kind of the goal. We've been through COVID, come out of COVID, and the markets keep shifting. And so I've had to keep adjusting and shifting how we connect, where we connect, the different things we do. Now, through it all, the podcast has always been there. And COVID was the reason we started the second podcast. It's like, I know I should do this, but I'll get to it. It's like, oh my God, the world shut down. I can't do anything else. Podcast go. So that pushed us that way. And who knows? Now they're talking of more influenza or something and mask. You just got to keep pivoting. That's the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
We will survive as long as we don't panic. And that's the other thing I have found business owners tell me. They go, when we have a lot of cash in the bank, we don't do stupid. Like, we don't take a bad customer on because we can say no. We're like, we don't need your business. They can sleep better at night. And so all of these things kind of come together. And so that's kind of what we're working on for us. And then it seems like every January we go through a system improvement. And so we're improving our back end systems in the midst of that right now to make them even more efficient. And then the third thing I think is improving our delivery of service. How can we do a better job of serving our clients and better understanding their needs and predicting what they're going to need going forward?
Very good. What is the best business mindset that people should start to adapt to have in order to succeed in 2025?
So, couple things. And actually, we've just been chatting about this a bit. It comes out of Dane Maxwell's book, Start from Zero. He goes, all business is pretty much the same. Customer has a problem, uses a mechanism to solve the problem. And Dane says, you know what? I don't care about the mechanism, but that's the business, right? Focus on the customer has a problem. I show them a solution. They don't care how you specifically do it. Too many business owners are focused on their mechanism. They're not focused on the customer's problem. How do I show them that I can solve it? That's trust, right? It's empathy, it's connection, it's all those things to say I can solve it. So I think that's one big thing. The second big thing, 80% of business owners don't understand their numbers. You are not going to survive in business without having clarity. That's why I had a call just a couple of weeks ago with one of my clients, and he wanted to add something to his business, so we ran the numbers. And at the end, it goes, the numbers never lie because we've done this multiple times. They show me exactly what I need to do. They give me on clarity on, sometimes we've run numbers with him, and they're like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. No, it doesn't. And this time we ran numbers goes, okay, that makes sense. I can do this. I can see the downside. This will work. We're going to do this. So when you have that kind of clarity of exactly what you need and how it's going to work, and it's realistic, Business owners are optimistic. You need to be realistic and pressure test the numbers to say, is this possible? And in that case, then you know where it makes it easier to say yes and no, and it makes it easier to know where should I focus my time, effort, and money.
Sure. I love that. Put a little bit of realism in there. You gotta have that balance in there for sure. Um, I want to thank you so much. How can people get in touch with you?
So everything we do is at the website, profitcomesfirst.com. You can find the podcast. You can learn more about us. We've got free giveaways to help you better understand your business, and our different offerings are there as well. So kind of a great place to learn and get free resources and check out the podcast. And when you're ready, we can chat.
Yeah, awesome. I love your podcast. I've been on your podcast. It was a phenomenal experience. I'm grateful to have you on mine. I think you're so insightful with the stuff that you teach and the way that you approach business. It's definitely helped me, and I think it'll help many. So a very gracious thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.